Yes, good morning to all of you. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. A warm welcome to all of you on this FDP of Essentials of Data Science. So I request to Dr. Neeta Deshpande ma'am to take over a charge and proceed with the session.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Brishali, ma'am, hope I'm audible.
Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
I
Yes, ma'am.
just share my screen. Please do let me know if the screen is visible as well.
Yes, ma'am. It is visible.
Screen is visible?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So, let's start. Okay, so good morning, one and all, to this national level FDP on essentials of data science. The topic that is being allotted to me is data visualization. As already taught by Patil sir yesterday, the classification techniques. So what I'm going to do today is, this would be my agenda. In the agenda, I'll take a couple of minutes on telling about what is data visualization, why data visualization is required, just in a few minutes, maybe 8 odd minutes or so. And then I'll let you know about some of the tools that are used for data visualization, its corresponding links, the techniques that are available for data visualization, that are many. We cannot use, we cannot show all the techniques in this lecture itself. But then what is more important and the core of this particular session is, I would be taking one case study and I'll be using the Google Colab to show you the case study. And we always speak of data science. We keep on saying that in data science, we are doing the pre-processing, we are doing the training, we are doing the testing. What actually it is and how do we do it? So this session will basically focus more, after this couple of odd minutes are being done, it will focus more on how the things in data processing is being done, data science is being done. So we'll be elaborating the entire data science process, starting from raw data, then pre-processing, then visualization, training, testing, and then we have used certain classifiers. So how to use the classifier, we'll be seeing all this in a case study. This would be a agenda for my session. Okay, so we start with basically what data visualization is. So we all know that data visualization, it's a graphical representation of any information and data, है ना? So if we are having certain visual elements like maybe charts or maybe graphs or maybe certain maps, then these data visualization tools, it will provide us a proper way or an accessible way, so that we can see what are the trends going on, what are the outliers, what are the patterns, whatever is in the data, those things can be extracted out if data visualization is done properly. है ना? So this is the world of big data, right? So data visualization tools and techniques, they are essential, and they are actually, helpful to analyze the massive amounts of information, that so that we can make some data-driven decisions. Now, what happens is we have so much amount of information that is collected every day through data analysis in the business or in any of in the entire world. Let's say every day some information is being collected. So we need to have a way so that we can paint a picture of the data. We should know, we should make it visual, we should make it pictorial so that we can represent this data. This data visualization, it will give us a clear idea of what this information means. It will give us the visual context of the information, maybe either through graphs or maps or many tools that are available. So our data is, we can say, it is being made more natural to the human minds to understand, to comprehend, and we can make and identify trends and patterns out of it. Okay, since one more thing which is important is our eyes, they are very drawn to colors. So if we can point out the data in colors, maybe red differentiated from blue, or in shapes, maybe the square differentiated from circle, then it's more effective. So we say our culture is visual, so including everything from art to advertisements or TV or movies, everything, we can say that our culture itself is visual. So visualization, has its own importance. In other form of visual art, we can say that graphs are of our interest, and it will keep our eyes on the message wherever we have that graph. So if you look at this Brazilian development chart, we can first, our look will be on the colors that are being shown. So what is orange, what is red, what is green, we can just classify, we can just we'll be able to make out the difference between this. So if we have a set of data, a massive spreadsheet, massive in the sense a very huge spreadsheet consisting of 900 or 10,000 or huge amounts of data, then to classify this data, make it more visualization, we would be able to identify certain patterns. So the image I've taken from is from this particular site, Tableau. This is the image, and we say this data visualization is the representation, graphical representation of any information or any data we have. We have, identified here the country types. We can identify the longevity index, the education index. It is just a sample that I've taken for, data visualization, what exactly it means. So you're going to visualize the data, and we would specifically move on to the scientific data, because in engineering we deal with scientific data. We'll go to scientific data and we'll carry out the case study on it. So second point, as I said, that I'm going to have in this is the data visualization. So why data visualization is used? So if you can see, this data is taken from the CNBC website, the news that has been given. So what are the news that are popping up these days? So if I see the first news that COVID case flares up typically haven't kept the stock market down for long. So such type of news. Or here maybe a direct graph is given. Here's where the jobs are in one chart. So when I look at these information, or whenever any news channels are giving out certain statistics or certain information, if they are presented out in a graphical way, if visualization is done, then it makes more effective for us, so that we can understand, since our minds are trained for colors, for charts, for graphs, for pictures, that we can say that data visualization, it helps us doing the entire things, to grasp the entire things more properly. So we can say from this that data visualization is nothing but it's a practice of translating information into some visual context. So this visual context may be graphs and maps, and as I told, it can be many more. So main goal of visualization is what? We have to identify the patterns, we have to identify the trends, and we have to identify the outliers if we have large data sets. So this term, it's interchangeably used with graphics or information or visualization or statistics graph. Everything is nothing but it's data visualization. It is one-step process of data science. What does this step indicate? It states that after data has been collected, after data has been processed, after data has been modeled, what we need to do is we must visualize the data properly for making out certain conclusions from the data. Okay, so in a broader way, we can say that this data visualization, it is an element of the DPA architecture, that is your data presentation architecture. And this identifies and locates, or it manipulates the format, or it manipulates the information that you're going to deliver in the most effective way. So whatever business, since we said that this FDP is an interdisciplinary FDP, so no matter what business or what career you have chosen, your data visualization can help you deliver the data in the most effective way that is possible, as one of the essential steps in data, or maybe a business intelligence process, or anywhere. So we have the raw data, we model it, we deliver the data so that we can make out certain conclusions. This is the importance of data visualization. So what happens in advanced analytics, the data scientists, they are creating some machine learning algorithms, and these machine learning algorithms are then compiled so that essential data be taken for visualization, and we are understanding the data more properly, and then we are interpreting out some results from it, or we are predicting some results out of it. Prediction is a common terminology that is being used in data science. So specifically, data visualization, it uses visual data to communicate information in a manner which is very fast. So nowadays, data is coming out in massive amounts. It is a rapid real-time data that is coming out, very effective, huge amount of data. So the practice, it will help us to identify which areas need to be improved, which factors are to be taken into consideration. Let's say I'm having a data of a typical business organization who's selling out some things. So I need to know maybe which area the customers lie down who are satisfied with the data, which area the customers are who are not satisfied. So it gives us the data about the stakeholders as well, the business owners, the decision makers, and so many. So in short, data visualization will help us to identify, to visualize the data in a more proper manner and make out certain conclusion out of data. So once we know why data visualization is used, we move on to data visualization of big data. So big data will be nothing but a huge amount of data that we have. Certain amount of analytics are applied on this big data so that we can make out certain conclusions from the big data. So again, I took this particular snap from internet. I forgot to mention the link out here. So this is an diagram of a simple dashboard, and believe me, the dashboard learning courses, they are more costly than the normal data science courses that are being offered by Coursera. And also dashboard learning and giving the dashboard for the visual data, giving for every application that you're designing, or for every new application that is coming out into the market, is very important. So in this world of big data, data visualization tools and techniques, they are very essential if you want to analyze big amounts of data, and if you want to make the decisions which are data driven decisions. So since we know that big data is very amazing, it's having a huge amount of data. Let's say if we are going to the store, we want to spend how much amount of time into the store. So what is our favorite activity? Everything nowadays, it is tracked down, and whatever application we are using, it will give us the depending on our taste, it will further recommend us. So many recommendation systems are based on this design activities. So it's now the time that we enter into big data visualization. So bigger companies, like companies like Google or Facebook or Amazon, maybe Apple, Twitter, Netflix even. So they are having their data, they're using data visualization techniques for making their business more effective. They make better business decisions based on data analytics. So analytics is done based on data visualization we have. So big data analytics, they will be using some analytic techniques against these, huge and diverse data sets. These data sets, they may be structured data sets, or they may be unstructured data sets, or they may be in some other form of data. And very important is this data can be huge in terabytes or zettabytes, or even more. So this big data term that is being applied to the data sets is beyond the ability of traditional databases to capture. So traditional databases that were used, they could not be used to capture all these bigger data sets and huge volume of data that is coming out. One more important thing is the volume of data that is coming out is not only huge, it is of high variety, and it is of also of high velocity. What do we mean by high variety and high velocities? Let's say I have AI data coming up, mobile data coming up, social data, Internet of Things data, data driven by new forms. Sources of data, they can be from sensors, the data is coming from certain devices, from certain sensors, from certain networks, from certain log files, some certain, transactional applications, and so many, from social media. So huge amount of data is coming, huge amount of data is coming in real time, and it is coming with high velocity. So to manage all these data, data visualization and data analytics is very important. So hence, these days, a huge focus is done on the data analytics as well. So what will these analysts and research and all do? They will use this data, and they'll make some better decisions for, for the future, so that the data that is being used is in a usable format. So what we can conclude out of this is that big data visualization is the way that is big data visualization plus analytics is a way that will help us to have certain data or certain conclusions from the data. So maybe that conclusion can be, we can review large amounts of data, we can spot the trends from the data. Maybe if there are certain trends in the data, like in a particular area some amount of crop is grown in a massive amount, and so on and so forth. So so whatever is the trend, so depending on the time sequence of the data, the trends could be identified, or they could be spotted out. It can also be used for identifying the correlations between certain quantities. It could also be used for identifying the unexpected relationships between the data. And very important is, you can make the data very presentable for others to enter and understand whatever the data that you're presenting. So presentation is also one effective part of data visualization. Understanding, prediction, analytics, giving out decisions, spotting out the trends, and so many reasons are there that we need to do on based on data visualization. So this is what was the basics of data visualization. Why is data visualization required? What is data visualization, and why it is needed along with analytics and all for the big data. So moving on, we shift to certain tools that are used for data visualization. Now I say again, these are certain tools. Okay, I've just pointed out 6 here. There are many more tools that are available for data visualization, because it allows us to interact with the data. It goes beyond the analysis part. It gives you the presentation files. It allows us, whenever you're presenting, it keeps the eyes, the more beautiful you're showing, beautiful way, or the more statistical way you're showing out your data, the audience is more attracted towards your data. And people are, but we would be wondering, if so much amount of data is available with us, how do I make my data very clean? How do I do the processing and part? So what these tools are doing, they are ready-made tools available, and they will allow you to simplify your data in a couple of seconds with some commands and all. So this is the beauty of the tool. They are ready. You can pick up the right tool depending on your needs, what you're going to do, what you're going to design. Depending on your need, you can pick up a tool and you can go ahead with this. So the best tools that are used are, if I have a spreadsheet with me, I'm ready to go with spreadsheet, with data. I have my data file ready. I'm ready to use these tools. Maybe it is a Jupyter tool, maybe it is Google Developer Tool, maybe it is Tableau, maybe it is Infogram, Plotly, Qlik, or so on. So I'll just give, and I've given the link of all the tools here. I'll just brief you a little about each in very little. So this Jupyter.org is the link where you find this open source project, and it is also used for big data analysis. So in this, what happens is the visualization and the real-time collaboration of more than, more than, let's say, 10 languages are being allowed here. So the interface which this Jupyter has is, you have a code input, the tool runs on this particular code, and then you deliver the visually readable image that is based on your visualization technique that you're choosing out. So many of you must have already been used the Jupyter notebooks. We know that we can share it among the team, and one team we can do the collaboration. One is doing the editing at one end, the other can do the editing at the other end, and we can boost the teamwork based on such type of data analytics. And we can also load this on our GitHub or GitLab so that we can make it publicly available, or we can have even the public collaboration on whatever results we are having on our file. So one more thing, that is, they can include it in the Docker, and these Docker is containing some Kubernetes, and they can be run on any other platforms as well. So which platforms are available, that you can find it on the Jupyter notebook. Roughly, I can tell you that the patterns that are allowed are, you can use it with R, you can use it with C#, you can use it if just I can click on this, I'll just tell you, this is the link for the jupyter.org, and what is coming out here in jupyter.org is I can either install the entire Jupyter Lab notebook on my machine, or I can try it out on the browser. So let's say I've not installed, because I mostly prefer Google Colab, so I've not installed. So this is Jupyter Try. Then I have this classic notebook. I can use Jupyter Lab, I can use it with Julia, I can use it with R, or maybe C#, C++,
Oh, hello.
or may, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
Yes, okay. So I can use it with any of the things. So if I want to try Jupyter right now, what I'll do is I'll start installing Jupyter, and if I want to have an example, I'll try to run out here. But I'm not going to do all this, because all this installation and all this will take a bit of time. Entire thing is available in the documentation part. You can check with the general interfaces, you can check with the user interfaces, you can check with the IPython interfaces that is available. Why I'll not focus on any of the tools out mentioned out here, because I'll be focusing on Google Colab, and the entire case study of the entire data science process, I'll be showing it to you live on Google Colab. So I'll not focus more on these tools, because n number of tools are available. So if I go on this Tableau, you can see this Tableau is another tool which is used for data visualization and even the analytic parts. So if I want to see with this Tableau, I can find many cases. Let's say, for example, I want to deal with all the COVID-19 things. So I'll have all hands on data here. I have the COVID-19 data hub. I have the vaccine management part. So let's say I click on this vaccine management part, and what data is available for this? I think it's not going. Yes. So if I click on this, what data is available to me about the government agencies, the healthcare, the life sciences, organizations, and so many things are available about modern vaccine management. And then I can use the analytics for vaccine management, I can use the modern vaccine management, and I can go ahead with the Tableau. I can install it on my machine, or I can run it out here on the browser that is being provided to me, and I have the data set, so I can do all the pre-processing and the patterns on the data set that is available. So if we go on this, like products, what are available, solutions, certain solutions are given for industry, certain resources are available, so you can get start. Then you can learn Tableau. There are free videos, tabular certifications, and so many things available. So you can just move on to the site and you can learn about the Tableau. So also there are tools like the Google chart. Google chart is very famous, and this Google chart will it will be used for, I'll just click on the link and I'll show you the Google chart. So Google chart is available, and this Google chart, it will display the live data on our site. It will display the live data on our site. So here I can see what about Google chart tools. So Google chart tools, they will be used to draw certain graphs. And when we are seeing certain graphs or certain columns, it becomes very easy for us to make out certain conclusions. So if I have my data ready in the Excel format, I can even use the Google chart for it. Okay, so next tool that is available is your infogram. So I'll not go on all the links now. I'll just give you a briefing of infogram. So is my screen visible? I'll just have a quick overview. Is my screen visible?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
yes, ma'am.
Yes, okay. So this infogram, it will let us link our visualization and graphics to the real-time big data. So this infogram, it will support the team, accounts team or media publishers or journalists or branded. These are tools which are mostly being used by architectures or the movie making parts wherever infographics is important. So these tools will be even used for some educational projects. So these tools will visually will have certain charts or images and maybe little of the text, not much of the text, but then data rich text concepts and everything, or even a visualization story can be made out from this data visualization. So very high quality and visually, very, very good, very effective, very stunning infographics. They could be made out in minutes if we are into infographic tools. So yesterday I was just trying out, and we can just make out informative, tools in just seconds. So though I'm not very familiar with these infograms, I'm just telling you the basics about these tools, and we can just move on to the sites and keep on drawing our keep on analyzing our data sets. That is not very hard. It's very easy. So the next tool that is available is the Plotly tool. So this Plotly tool, what it does is it helps us create a very sharp and a very slick chart in just a few minutes. So you start from a simple spreadsheet. This Plotly, it will use to give you a graph version or a chart version in a very effective manner. And Google, the USA Air Force, the Google, the New York University, all these are using Plotly since it is very user friendly and it gets you started quickly in minutes. So this, we can say, it is very friendly web tool, so it is being used. And if you are in a team of developers, then certain APIs are also available. So through these APIs, you can crack in through maybe Java or JavaScript or maybe Python, and you can work this. Uh, Very important part of Plotly is, I wanted to click here, the one of the part that it has a dash cloud. So this dash cloud, it will give you even the facility to design your own dashboards. So these dash clouds and dash enterprise that is available, it will help us to build and it will help us to deploy the analytic web applications that we are designing, that is designing maybe in Python or maybe in R or maybe in JavaScript or anything. So through this dashboard, what we can do is many AI, ML, and Python analytic programs could be run out based on this dash cloud. So this is one important feature that I found out on Plotly. So I thought I'll just share the Plotly part as well. So the next tool that we are going to identify here is the QLick. I've taken all the logos out here on the slide. So QLick logo is available here. It is in this particular part. This is one of the very widely used data visualization tools, and it is used for raw data into knowledge. It is used for converting the raw data into the knowledge. So some features which I can identify of this QLick is it will have a transparent reporting and a better scalability facility. It will support multiple presentation formats. So many presentation formats are available. It will maintain the data without any manual inputs that is being given. You just do certain clicks and you get the data out of it. It will help you to understand what are the current market trends. As I told you, every app that every tool that you're using, it will help you to identify what is what is the trend coming out, and what are the conclusions that you can make out of this. So this QLIC one, I can identify one, that this QLIC, it is named leader in 2021 by the Gartner Magic Quadrant for Analytics and Business Intelligence Platform. So these are some of the tools which are being used for data visualization. So maybe you can go along and start with Jupyter with tutorial, or Tableau with tutorial, or developers, or Infogram, or Plotly, or QuickLick, and so on. So one important thing now, when we are dealing with data, when we, as I said, हमारे पास Excel file होगी, so if we have that Excel file, then we can go and start the processing of the data. But some things are very important for data when we are doing the processing. First thing is important is clarity. The data must be very clear. If the data is clear, then only the data scientist would be, able to make out or find out some new patterns in the data. So clarity is very important. Efficiency is important. So the visualization techniques that we are going to use must be very effective. So it should be highlighting certain points. And accuracy, if the data is accurate, then only proper conclusions and proper things are to be done. So for all this, some data science process is being given up. So there are different types of data visualizations. As I told you before also, you can make charts, tables, graphs, maps, certain infographics, certain dashboards. These are the one I made as yellow because they are most commonly used. But along with this, there are many: area chart, bar charts, bubble cloud, bullet graph, cartogram. Heat map is also mostly used to find out the correlations and all. The radial tree is there, polar area, text table, timeline. This is a list, okay, and still this list may not be complete. It's just a list. I've identified out some, and I've put out that these are the different types of data visualization techniques that are available, out of which these are the ones which are commonly used. So now from this data visualization technique, we'll shift on to what actually how data visualization is being done. So I told you this data visualization, I'm going to show you an entire case study on complete data science process, including data visualization. So I'll be showing it to you on Google Colab. So what is happening in Google Colab is, I'll just show you. If you go on to Google and just type down Google Colab, it will give you this first link, and you can come here and find out what is Google Colab. So Google Colab is, it is nothing but it is it is a tool which is allowing us to write our code into the Google part. So if I go on, I can see even a video for introduction of Google Colab, which I will not. So I'll just give you a introduction that Google Colab will help us to present our data, write our data more properly. It can be used in data science, it can be used in machine learning, it can be used in many algorithms you will find out on Google Colab. Okay, so now there are two things that we need to consider for Google Colab. So if I just click on data science, so there are certain libraries. There are two reasons why I prefer Google Colab. The first, there is also a drawback of Google Colab. I'll just let you know. So why I prefer is because whenever I'm writing a code in my Jupyter notebook and I want to have some libraries, so what I need to do is I have to download all libraries. Maybe I'm using some classifier. So for that classifier, whatever are the files required, I have to download them in my machine, and then I can start working on it. But what is the beauty of Google Colab is I just write import NumPy. So NumPy is a library, it is available online, and then I can maybe Matplotlib. It is another important library. I can just import it, and I can start working on these libraries. So this is the positive part of Google Colab. And normally when I'm doing the testing, and whenever I'm testing out some new concepts, or maybe whenever I'm using certain classifier and I have to get down the results immediately, I just go into Google Colab and I run that. Okay, this was the plus part of Google Colab. Here I can write my code, whatever I want. I can write down the text here in the text box, and I need to connect it because whenever I connect, and if the connection is being done, then I'll be able to connect to the internet, and I'll be able to run my entire program. So I will be able to do everything online if I'm using the Google Colab part. Okay, so I'll go back to this. Okay, so what we are going to do in the case study is, the problem statement that I've taken for case study is a very basic problem statement, and we all know that Titanic data set is available on Kaggle. So I just took that Titanic data set from Kaggle. I downloaded that Titanic data set and started working on that Titanic data set. Okay, so now this Titanic data set, what we are going to find out in the entire problem statement is how many passengers survived in this Titanic and how many passengers did not survive. This is what we are going to predict out. Okay, I've done it in Google Colab. I'll show you step by step. So what are your steps for data science process? The first step that you're going to do is you're going to load your data set. After your data set is being loaded, you'll have to do the pre-processing of the data set, right? So what is that pre-processing? Step by step, I'll tell you. When we are running the actual code, we'll remove the unnecessary columns which are not required. We'll remove the null values. We'll remove the non-numeric values. And whatever are the non-numeric values, we will map it to the numeric values. Again, what we'll do is we'll handle the name column and we'll extract title and we'll convert it to numeric value. So again, it will come in step by step and I'll show you. In this entire process, I'm parallelly doing the data visualization and I'm seeing how the data is being changed. Okay, so once the pre-processing is done, once we are also doing the visualization part, always we say that we have to split the data, whatever is available with us, data set, we split it into the training part and we split it into the testing part. Once the training and testing is done, we train the model. Okay. Once the model is trained, then this trained model, from this trained model, we'll do certain predictions. Now, how this training testing is done, how predictions are being done. Okay. One more thing I want to tell you is, this is the thing, I'll not connect it because I've used 4 classifiers. So I've used KNN for you, I've used the decision tree, I've used SVM, and I've used random forest. So since random forest and the decision tree was already explained by Dr. Patil sir yesterday, today I thought I'll just give an implementation part of it for this particular Titanic data set only. And I had already trained it, so I will not run it. So if I run it, again training will take place, so again 20-25 minutes will go. So I've just trained the data and I've put on everything here as a display. So any one of you can tell me if the screen is properly visible or you want me to increase the font size? Any one of you can please let me know.
Please increase the font size.
Okay. Okay. So initially what we do is we imported the required libraries and we imported the data that is required. Okay, so I imported NumPy library, I imported the pandas. These pandas are used for the entire data frame that I'm getting. Okay, then matplotlib for plotting out certain plotting things. The sklearn model is used for the training and the testing part, and the Seaborn library is used for all the classifiers that I'm using. Now what happens is, see the beauty how it is. I say df and I say read the Titanic file. So once this entire CSV file is available with me, I'm reading this file and I just say df. So all the frames, I do minus because I want to show all the columns. Okay. So all the columns, the passenger ID, the survived class, the P class, the name of the passenger, the sex of the passenger, age, sibling and spouse. If this passenger has a sibling or a spouse, if this passenger is a parent or has a parent or child with him, whatever is the ticket number, what was his fare, which cabin he was, and embarked means from where he came into the ship, from where he boarded into the ship. So this is the data set that is available, and I've just printed out. So total 890 columns are 890 rows of data are available with me. Okay, for the Titanic data set. So I just don't want all the things to be printed out. So what I did is I said only head. So when I'm printing out only head, the first 5 columns of the data are being printed out. So now when I print only 5, it becomes easy for me to know that, okay, these are the columns and this is how the data is being represented. So the first part that I did in my data science processes, I took the data, I imported the data, and I displayed the data, and I've seen what are the columns of this data set. Okay, so now I start the pre-processing of the data. So before pre-processing, I like to see some of the information of the data. So what I do is I display some information from the data set. So this describe as a function will give me some information of the data. Some information in this data is the count. So what is this count? What is the passenger ID? So 891 is the count for passenger ID. 891 is the count for survived. 891 is the count for P class. So entries are available in 891 rows for all these columns. Okay, it will give me the count where all these data is available. It will give me the mean value. So out of 891, if I take the value of passenger ID, then what is the mean of the entire passenger ID? What is the standard deviation of this, this column? What is the minimum value? What is 25%? What is 50%? What is the max value of this particular column passenger ID? Similarly, I get for the survived part. So obviously, see, survived will either have a value of 1 or it will have a value of 0, right? So mean that is coming out from that column is 0.38. The standard deviation that is coming out is 0.48. And similarly for P class, similarly for age. So everywhere I'll get the meaning out of this data. So when I say describe, I get out some meaning from the data. I get the mean, I get the count, I get the standard deviation. Okay, so what I do is now I will display all these data in column format so that the things becomes easy for me to understand. So what I do is I do DF columns and passenger ID, survived, P class, name, and I find out the data type of each column. So I have these many columns now: passenger ID, survived, P class, name, sex, age, sibling, spouse, parch, ticket, fare, all these, and the data type is given out here. Now this data is raw data, right? So I need to clean the data, I need to do some pre-processing of the data, so I have proper numeric data available with me. The data may be in different forms, right? So in this I have object, float. So these are the different data types that are available. So step by step I'll do the processing. So first step what I did is this is the way that I am processing. Okay, you can process it in a different way. You can get some different result doing different type of pre-processing. So what I did here is I found out what are the number of missing values. So to find out the number of missing values in passenger ID, I've used this missing ID function, and then in the passenger ID there are 0 missing values. Survived, there are zero missing values, in the sense when I have the passenger ID column, so out of all 839 data that is available, in all the columns data is present. There is no null value. Okay, so missing values are 0 in all except in age, because when I had the data in the age column, kahin pe age nahi hai. So there are 177 columns when the data was checked where age part is missing out. There were 687 places where the cabin data is missing. In this cabin column, 687 blank values I have, the missing values I have. And in embarked, I have 2 values that are missing. So what are the different insights I get from this particular data? The insights is now, what is my target value? What I have to find out is survived or not survived. Okay, one more thing I want to mention out here is this is a supervised learning algorithm. Okay, so what happens in supervised learning algorithm is target data is already available to us. So with the target data, we are comparing the predicted data. So then we can say what is the accuracy, and then we can say how much is the efficiency. Maybe we can create the confusion matrix. I'll come up to it. So it is a supervised learning. So data is available to us, and what are our predictions? We are going to compare with the existing ones. So the target value that is predicted is right. Now we have one more column which is ticket, right? So this ticket will hardly contribute anything into finding out whether survived or not. Maybe ticket number is important, but let's say for my processing, I say that it is not contributing any much of the information for predicting. So what I do is I'll drop out this ticket from the data set. Why I'll do the dropping part is I want to make the data set more precise and I want to do a processing little fast. So my thought process says that ticket is not that important for me to get the processing. So I just dropped out the ticket part. Also the column cabin, it has many null values. So cabin is the passenger was sitting in which particular cabin. My concern is whether he survived or not. So I say that there are so many null values in this cabin column also, so I also drop it out. So I don't use this cabin column as well. This is a part of pre-processing that we are doing for this particular problem. Okay. So some columns, they do not have null values. Like for example, यहाँ आपने देखा कि P class and all, they don't have any null values, है ना? P class, the sex part, the sibling spouse part, the parent child part, and the fare, they don't have any null values. So there are very few missing values in age as well, and there are very missing values in the column embark. So these can be imputed using different techniques. We'll see how these are imputed. And also we can create a new family variable where we have the total family size. So total family size मुझे कैसे मिलेगी? अगर passenger है या उसका sibling spouse है तो कितने sibling spouse है and how many parent child it has. So that becomes the entire total family, है ना? And we can also have this total family size made from the column sibling spouse and from the part. Okay, this was the basic thing that was required, pre-processing part, which was required for as far as my logic was concerned. We can change as our own logic we think of. So what we do is we remove these unnecessary columns. Which were the unnecessary columns as far as our logic was concerned? The ticket and cabin. That is what we said. So there's directly a function available, drop columns. So we drop this particular columns and we say head. So first 5 columns are being printed out here. So these 5 columns are being printed and the 2 ticket and cabin are dropped out. So now I have passenger ID, now I have the survived, now I have P class, now I have name, sex, age, sibling, spouse, part, fare, and embark. So these are the data things that are available with me. The next part that I'm going to do is I'm going to handle the null values, right? So I have to check how many null values are there. So again, I'll do null and I'll check. So only null values are available in the age column and the null values are available in the embarked column. So in the embarked column, we have the majority class. You know, so what we do is whatever is in the embarked column, in the majority thing, we just fill. So अगर embarked column से मैंने जो भी embarked में either it is from S, either it is from P, either it is from whatever, you know, 3 उसमें जो भी classes है 2. So whatever is available, it will hardly affect my part on survival. So since it is a null value, I put on any value. I put it on S here. We can put any other value just to make it non-null. So if it is null, then I'll just put the S value in that embark. So now again here if I check my embarked column, I don't have any null values. So again data is available, no null values in the embarked column as well. Now where null values are available, they are available in the age column only. Usme hi sirf meri null values hai, and there is one missing value for fare. So we'll allot that time when I was running available value, one value was available for fare, then I needed 0. So this comment I had written, you know, for at that particular moment of time. And if there was one value for fare and I had allotted the median value to it. So similarly in the age column also, we'll allot the value to the age column. So then for the age column, what we do is we find out the columns that are useful for the age. So what we do is we find, now here also I used one data visualization tool. So that we can say I've used in this, but you can use any tool. I just used the heat map here. Now what this heat map is showing me now, I'll just do control plus so that things are, see. So what I did is for this particular data that is available, I plotted the heat plot and heat map, sorry, and this heat map, it is showing me the correlation between all all the fields of this data and between all the fields of this data. So it is showing me the correlation between the fair and the P class. So it is minus 0.55. It's showing me the correlation between, let's say, the parent child and the age class. So here also it is minus point. So somewhere it is positive correlation, somewhere it is negative correlation. Whatever is one, that means it's a perfect correlation, right? So this is how, why perfect correlation? Because P class obviously depends on P class, right? Age, it obviously depends on the age column. That is why here we are going to have that positive correlation. So what we did from here is, okay, so from this we can see that at, so we can see that age, it has a negative correlation with the parent child, the sibling spouse and the P class. So just see age, parent child, sibling spouse and the P class. Here there is a negative correlation. That means these columns are hardly affecting anything on the age part. Now, there's a negative correlation. So what we can do is we can fill the age with median age of similar rows from P class, from sibling spouse and from parent child class. Yes, so that is what is the beauty of visualization. This heat map gave me the direct correlation. So I was okay, okay, age ka yahan pe effect nahi hai kya? Okay, then I'll put this particular value in the age class. So this is what is being done. What is being done is, since we will, since there is negative correlation between the parent child, the sibling spouse and the P class, we will fill this age with median age of similar rows from the P class, from the sibling spouse and from the parent child class. So this is how it is being done. I had run this and I've kept it, and it is, remember, for 177 entries. 177 entries tha, jahan pe null tha. So I've just kept a snapshot for you. This is not the code. This is the thing that came out when I was running. Okay, so it is being run for 177 times. I've purposely kept in just to see that there are so many entries and how the running part comes into picture. This is not the code. So the pandas were used, it was run and all the columns, and then when we displayed and when we checked null values hai kya, now our data is available, entire data is available, and we don't have a null value. So our data is ready for pre-processing. Again, if this entire our data is available after pre-processing. Okay, so because we want to put this data to some model, and then we have to train the model, right? And then we have to test the model. So I have the data which is not null. But again, there is one small thing, one small pre-processing that we have to do here again. And we have to check whether entire data is numeric or not, because I want to process the numeric data at this moment of time. So I'll clean the data and I'll convert the entire data that is there in my data set. I'll convert it to the numeric part. So I checked the data type first. Kitne type ka data hai? So I have some data like object and float, and other data which is in the numeric form. So the data which is not available in numeric type is the sex data, which is having male and female, and the embarked data, which is having the value as Q, S, and so on, so forth. Okay, so what we do is, since it is sex male and female, we make it numeric and we say male is equal to 0 and we put female is equal to 1. So what we do is we just put this data, and wherever it is embarked, no? Embarked me, we have 3 values, C, we have Q, and we have S. So wherever it is C, we put it as 0. Wherever it is Q, we represent it as 1, and wherever it is S, we represent it as 2. Okay, so ab kya hua? My entire data is now converted to numeric value. There were 2 places, the sex and the embarked data, which were not numeric. So it is being converted to numeric now. Now, one more important part is the name part. Name is not numeric, right? So name is a non-numeric type. So how do I handle the name column now? So when I looked at this particular data, what we checked is, from the name column, we checked that, let's say, for example, this data, Brown Mr. Owen Harris. This is the passenger in the Titanic. This was the passenger in the Titanic. Cummings Mrs. John Bradley, or Highline Miss Lina. So what from this data we could make out is, either it is a Mr., either it is a Mrs., or either it is Miss. Okay, so everywhere from the data, we identified that this was the type that was given for when they were giving the names of the passenger in this particular data set. So then what we did is we extracted this out. Okay, we extracted this out, and then for Mr., for Mrs., and for Miss, we have put on 0, 1, 2. Okay, so then when the name class came, what we did is we just plotted out. So we checked that these many misters were there, these many miss were there, and these many misses were there, and these many masters were there. And there were some other also in the data set. Okay, some was doctor, some was reverend, some was colonel, some was major. ये भी चीजें थी. तो ये जो भी है ना, all these things, we just make it into a separate category and we write it as other. Okay, what we do is doctor, reverend, colonel, major, all these we replace it with the others category. So now we have 4 categories with us. We have Miss, Mrs., Mr., and the others category. So now I'll put on and I'll just map, I'll sort the index, and now I have this particular index for the passenger count. Okay, Miss, Mrs., Mr., and this entire category is taken as the as the other category. So now this data set I'll be converting into numeric part. So master hai we have put as 0, miss hai we have put as 1, Mr. hai we have put as 2, Mrs. hai we have put as 3, and others we have put as 4. Okay, so now entire name set is also converted to the numeric set. So I have done the pre-processing. All the null values are removed from the data set. All the non-null, all the values which were null are either replaced or they are removed. All the values are now converted to the numeric part. And one more thing, one more part I just did here is I created a new column family size, as I told you before, and then from the sibling and the patch, unke kitne, let's say this is the column na. So whatever is the sibling, this is the passenger, one is the passenger, he has one sibling spouse and he has 0. So these two becomes the family size of 4. This becomes the family size of 2. There are 2 passengers. So this way I created one more column here just to make the things, how many people from the family survived, just to have that count here. So family size we calculated from the sibling, spouse, and the parch column of the data. So this is being done. Now this is the clear data available for us. We have the survived column, we have the P class, we have the sex, we have age in numeric, sibling spouse was already numeric before, and now we have the family size as well. So this is the way we have done the data. Now we'll just visualize the data, what is available to us. So we already have the, see, I repeat once again, this is a supervised learning. Supervised learning means I already have the survived column here. So I already know how many passengers are survived. One more concept which we must understand for data sciences, I am building a model, giving some input to the model, and training this model for this type of input and getting the output. Okay, so when it is supervised learning for this particular model, I already know the answers, so I can find out the efficiency and the accuracy. When my model is trained accurately with a good amount of efficiency, then I give some unknown data to this model and get the output. Okay, so this is what is a supervised model. Here we are using the supervised model. I have this data. I'll train it using various classifiers. I'll train it now in further. We'll do the training part, then we'll do the testing part. I've already trained it, but how training is done, I'll show you the code. So training will be done, then testing will be done for this particular model, and we'll do the predictions for the data. So now when we are visualizing the data, visualizing survived column, okay, so we know that majority of the passengers did not survive. Ye jo mera data already available hai, I have this data. So 500 plus passengers, this is the data, 0 is not survived, and this is the data who have survived. So this data is available to me now in this particular data set. Now I train the model with different classifiers, and I will check whether this data that is being given to me and what is the predicted data from the model and what is the efficiency I'm getting from those models. Okay, and okay, when it comes, I'll tell you step by step. So survival probability based on every passenger class we would be calculating. So when I have this data already, I'm displaying the number of passengers in each class. So majority of the passengers, survived passengers, are from class 3. That is what I can make out from the data. So I said the corresponding X label kya hona chahiye, Y label kya hona chahiye. Then just I'll be plotting out the data for this particular. So ek bar, once I know this, I'll check from this particular class the count, how many people survived. So 216 from this, 184 from this, and 491 from class 3. So this is what is the count of the passengers who had been in these particular class. These are the count of passengers. Okay, these are not the count of survived people. Survived is the name of the variable. That is why it has come here. It is the name of that variable. So it is being displayed here. But this tells that 216 passengers were there in P class, 184 people were there in class 2, P class 2, and 491 in 3. Out of that, how many survived? Survived is 136 from class 1, 187 from 2, and 119 from 3. So this was the data that is being displayed out here. So if I take out the mean, obviously I'll find out the probability of survival. So I could find out the probability of survival is more when P class is 1. So this is what the data is telling me about. So when I look at the data visually, I can make out certain conclusions. So after this basic conclusions, I will check the survival probability, and I've pointed out here for the sex part as kitne male or kitne female, how many of them have survived. So what we can see out here is majority of the passengers are male and these many passengers are female. And how many survived? So females have the higher probability of surviving, and since obviously they were given the priority and people took the female out before, and then so that is why maybe the case, we are not sure. Anyways, what has happened, we have just watched the movie, so हमें उतना ही पता है Titanic के बारे में. ठीक है. So this is the data which we got out from the data set. Similarly, I can also check out from the parent-child survival probability. So I just print out initially how many parent-child count मैंने पहले print किया, कितना count available है, and then how many survived. So this is the survival probability when the parent-child class was taken. So I can say that, for example, 0.3 is the survival probability for a person having 0 parent-child. Just for 0 parent-child hai, so his probability was 0.3 of survival. So this is how I calculate the survival probability for the parent-child class. Okay. We can also say that passengers having 3 children, 3 child parents, they have more survival probability. यहाँ आपने देखा, तो जिसकी family size बड़ी है ना, उनका survival probability ज़्यादा हुआ. That is what is given from the data. Now, our data is done with the pre-processing part. The first part is done. We checked out visually. We found out how the data is there. We then did the null. We cleared with the null values. We, we made all the values numeric. Now our data set is ready for training and testing. So we'll be doing the training and testing. We'll be checking it with 4 algorithms, as I told you. K nearest neighbor. We'll be doing it with SVM. We will be doing it with random forest and decision tree. Okay. Now here I have I'm splitting the data into training and testing. Now one data set is available. From this data set, I'll make it 80-20. Some part I will be using for the training, some part I will be using for the testing. Okay. So now what is the beauty here? If I'm not using Colab, then I'll have to import. If I'm doing Jupyter Notebook, तो ये सारा चीजें मुझे मेरे इस पे download करके रखना पड़ता था. Then I would have downloaded and then I would have run. But here, since it is Google Colab, I just imported it from the SKN Learning Library. I imported the standard scalar and it allowed me with the fit transform function for the training part. Okay, so just okay, so this is the training part. Before going on to KNN, we will do the training now. So how do we train it now? So we said we will drop out these columns. SIPS pass, Parch, Fair, Embark title, family size. Why we are dropping it out? Because these are the, we decided that, we'll have to find the dependency only on the categories of age, gender or P class. ये तीनों चीजें लेके we are going to find out whether a passenger survived or not. So we just dropped out. Okay, you may or you may not drop out. I've just done it to, fasten the process and go out with the things very fast. So I've dropped out these particular columns, and NA, it will again search whether it has a null value or not. So none of the column has a null value. So my data is ready for pre-processing. So sorry, for training. So now I will start the training. Okay, now how do I start the training? Training is a step which is used, which is required to get the accurate data. So I'll be converting the P class column into 3 columns. So I'll say P class 1 hai mere paas, P class 2 and P class 3, because these are the only values that are available in P class. So I convert it into 3 columns. So it will become more faster. Then I have one column for sex, which is showing male and female. So I just separate it out. I make it into 2 columns. There will be a male column separate and a female column separate. So that is what I have done here. So now after doing this, what I get is, I get passenger ID, the survived column is still there, age is there. Now P class 1, P class 2 and P class 3. Okay, so I have 3 columns now. As I told, I'll be having 2 columns for sex, that is 0 and 1. So I'm just variable name has been printed out here. It is 0 and 1. This P class must not be there. So this is 0 and this is 1. So I have added up 3 more columns here. Now, I repeat once again, I dropped out these columns because I don't want it for pre-processing, but I added up 2 more columns so that my efficiency comes out to be better. Okay, and then now once this data is available, I splitted this data frame into the testing data set and into the training data set. So just to make it more clear, we say the input data is stored in our X variable and the output data is stored into the Y variable. So this is the training output column, and X train, X test, Y train and Y test. This has been directly given. This is the output of this function train test split, which is ready-made available to us. It will split the training data and it will split the testing data. So how much percentage? The test size is 20%. So we are using, so we say that the training model, the X train and the Y train data will be 80%, and the X test and the Y test data will be 20% of the entire data set that we are having. So training ke liye 80% le liya, testing ke liye 20% le liya. This is what we did. And how training is done? It is directly available to us. Train test split. So we use this train test split and we split it out. And after this, the data that is available is in our frame X train, X test, Y train and Y test. Okay. So X is our input data. So input training data, input testing data, output training data, output testing data. Okay. So our training part is done. Once our training part is done, then I said we will be using 4 algorithms. If you see here, I said split into training and testing. Now split into training, testing is done. Train the model and then we need to test the model. So this train test split is done. Now we apply the k-nearest neighbor algorithm. I hope everybody is okay with k-nearest neighbor algorithm. So I just have a very, very quick overview on the k-nearest neighbor algorithm. So what is happening in k-nearest neighbor algorithm is, this is the diagram. So what we'll do is, we'll select the k number of neighbors first. If I have a point, I'll select the neighbors. I'll calculate the Euclidean distance between the k neighbors. Then I'll take the k nearest neighbor, which is being calculated as per this Euclidean distance. And among these k neighbors, I'll count the number of data points in each category, how many data points I have. And then I assign the new data points to that category for which the number of neighbors are maximum. That point is being selected. And this makes our model ready. Okay, I took a very, very short thing. I'm not going to go into the details of classification algorithm, but just to know the concept, what is happening in k nearest neighbor, to make our model ready, this is how we do. We take we select a number, We select the k neighbors, we count the Euclidean distance, we find out the nearest neighbor based on this Euclidean distance, and based on that we count the number of data points in each category. जिसी भी category में ज़्यादा है, wherever it is more, we assign the new data points to that category for where the number is maximum, and this makes our KNN model ready. Okay, so here what we are doing is now we directly have the SKL Learn library. So from standards, it will import the standard scalar. The SKL Learn will import the standard scalar, and then we do the fit transpose for XTrain and the transpose for XTest. Now, what is this fit transfer function? It will fit the correct dimensions. See, now this SKL Learn library has already done the coding part inside. Okay, so whatever is the transform data available to the correct dimensions, it's going to fit out, so that we can scale our training data and we can also learn the scaling parameters of that data. Okay, so since this fit transform and SC transform, we can say that data standardization is being done and the rescaling of the attributes is being done. Now this rescaling is done to the mean values of 0 and the variance 1. So this coding part is being done inside the fit function itself of KNN. Okay, so we just take the functions and we say that the fit method will calculate the mean and variance of each features of the data that are being present, and the transform method, it will transform all the features into the respective mean class and the respective variance class. So this part is being done with the train and test. Now, after the transform is being done, our next step is to create the model. Now where we are creating the model, we'll give the inputs and then we'll find out whatever is the output of this model, whether it is getting the accurate answer, because we already, it's a supervised model, so we already have the answer and we'll check the accuracy with our available results. So now we use the KNN nearest neighbor. Again, as I said, the beauty of SKL Learn, everything is available in KNN neighbor classifier, and what we are going to do is we are going to estimate some parameters for the model. So I said we want 7 nearest neighbors, so your value we can change as per our convenience. So here I've just put on a random value 7. So with this 7 we run the KNN model function with XTrain and YTrain, and we get the data of this model, which is being trained with the XTrain value and with the YTrain value in the result. So in result, we have the trained data available now in from our KNN model. Once we have the trained data, we will make the predictions out of the data. है ना? Model अब मेरा बन गया. See how easy it is. The beauty of the function. We need not code about this, do the coding of this entire KNN. It is available in some functions. We understand the concept, what KNN is doing, change the corresponding parameters, change the corresponding training functions, and we get the result of the trained data from for the KNN model. So we get this trained data into the result functions. Now, once the trained data is available, what we have to do? Next step is, after the trained data is available, after the trained data is available, we need to test the model. Testing is, we need to have the predictions out of those models. Predictions in the sense, kitne survive hue, kitne survive nahi hue. So again, we have a predict function which is available. So this predict function will give me the result, and it will be storing here in the predict function. The score function is available, which will give me the accuracy of the result. Now see, जो भी मेरे पास survive data था, whatever was the survived data available in the columns, based on that data, I have checked what is the predicted data. And when the comparison is being done, then the accuracy that was found was 56%. So which is not actually very good. But take care, when we change the it's a learning phase. So we'll just train the model with some different set. We'll try some different pre-processing types. We'll again see how we can modify with different parameters changing. So we just said that accuracy for KNN was 56% at this moment of time. So what we did is, again we calculated the precision recall also. So if I just write down classification report for this data, I can have the precision recall F1 score, everything available. What is precision recall? As per formula and technical details, I'll just show it to you in the slide. So this KNN process, then okay, I'll just show you what is It's written in last. So what is precision is what is true positive upon true positive plus false positive. How precise is our data? Actually, before this, I need to tell you what is confusion matrix. See now, what happens is the name is a confusion matrix, but it is very easy actually to understand. If the actual value is 0 and the predicted value is also 0, okay, for that particular column, it is said that it is true negative, right? Negative is 0 and positive is 1. Okay, so actual 0, this value is true negative. If the actual value is 0 and the predicted value is 1, that means wrong prediction hua hai na? So this is your false positive. If actual value is 1 and predicted value is 0, that means it's a false negative value because wrong prediction hua hai. And if actual is 1, predicted also 1, then it is true positive. So normally in confusion matrix, agar aapka efficiency acha aana hai na, if you want very good efficiency, these two values must be high and these two values must be low. Obviously, false positive or false negative nahi chahiye. We should have true positives and true negatives. So when a matrix is displayed in this way, then it is called as a confusion matrix. So it is used for finding out the accuracy. So यहाँ पे मैंने क्या किया? We have calculated the predictions, we have calculated the recall, just displayed out the class. I'm focusing more on the visualization part, है ना? तो इसीलिए what I did is I just wrote down classification report and I could visualize what is the precision, I could visualize recall, F1 score, support, everything. And we can see the accuracy score, it's very low. I said it's 56%. Yeah, हमने देखा ना 0.56 it's coming. So it's very low. So what we do is we can change this efficiency by doing, hyper parameter tuning. So how we can do hyper parameter tuning is I will not go into the details of it. There are n number of parameters available, like the leaf size is one of the parameters, the neighbors is one of the parameters, and many more parameters are available. So which parameter you want to tune if you want to improve the efficiency? Just to improve the efficiency to some extent, I've just tuned it with two more, hyper parameter tuning is being done with two more, that is with the leaf size and with the nearest, with the number of neighbors. And then again, once the parameter tuning is being done, I found out that best leaf size was 1 and best value of p was 2. Best n neighbor, see we selected the nearest neighbor as 7 है ना, लेकिन जब मैंने यहाँ पे देखा तो when we use the grid CV tool, grid CV tool, it's a very beautiful tool. You can check out it. It will allow us to change n number of parameters for research, and we can get some different results out of it. So instead of Euclidean distance, we found out with the Manhattan distance as well. So which distance is better, whether Manhattan distance is better or Euclidean distance is better, all these things part could be tried and tested using this grid CV search, and we can change the parameters accordingly, and we can do the hyper parameter tuning. So from this thing, we just found out that the best leaf size that we could do at the moment of time was 1, best p was 2, and best nearest neighbor was done. अभी ये जब मॉडल रेडी कर दिया, so we make our new model based on these predictions. इन्होंने बोला this is the best, so we now train the model with these parameters. We make the nearest neighbor as 21 and we make best leaf size as 1, and then again we do the testing. Again, when we do that is prediction, we do the testing again. We do KNN 2. I just name it as 2 because I had already had KNN 1. इसलिए मैंने इसको 2 बोल दिया. For this prediction with hyper parameter tuning. तो यहाँ पे मेरी accuracy कितनी आ गई? I got the accuracy as 59%. So from 56, it has now improved to 59. So if I tune more parameters, maybe I go on training, I go on again, parameter tuning. The more parameter tuning I do, I can move on to more accurate results. And if I go on with precision values also, the corresponding precision and the recall values will also improve. The F1 score will also improve. Okay. And I just displayed out the confusion matrix. So जैसे मैंने आपको बताया, this and this value must be high and this value must be low. But since it is only 59%, so this value is a little high. So once this for a standard thing, this value must be 0 to get 100% efficiency. So this is not 100% efficient. It's only 59.9 something efficient. So we can say hyper parameter tuning, it just increased our efficiency from 56 to 59.9. That is almost 60%. Now, this was one model. So हमने क्या किया model को? We did the pre-processing, then we trained the model, then we tested the model, then we did the predictions, and we got out some accuracy out of those models. So this was one model. Similarly, I tried it out with the support vector machine as well. ये जो steps ऊपर की है ना KNN के लिए, same steps are being done with support vector machine also. So for support vector machines also, when the predictions were done for support vector machine, the results that I got out for this, I'll just show you the results after this. I was displaying in between. Okay, so the accuracy that we got from the SVM was 78%. I didn't show the steps above because it's the same process as we did for KNN. So also we'll do for SVM. We'll train it with the SVM thing that is available to us. जो भी model हमारे पास है, directly fit functions available हैं, तो वो fit functions से we'll fit it to our SVM model, or we fit it to our random forest model, or we fit it to our decision tree model, and we will get the corresponding result. But everywhere, if you go on doing your hyperparameter tuning, this hyperparameter tuning, you can do it with grid CV search. And if we go on doing the hyperparameter tuning, you can get improved, you will be getting our improved results. So grid CV, this is not the code, okay? This is the help of grid CV search. So I displayed it out for you, the grid CV search. यहाँ पे कितने सारे हम लोग change कर सकते हैं, हम samples change कर सकते हैं, we can change the impurity, we can change the weights, we can change the estimators, and so many variables are available in the grid, which we can have a trial and test with all the values, and we can have some best or the optimal parameters that are there. So when I selected, I said, when we just checked out with some combinations, for random forest, I got the efficiency as 81. Then I displayed out, see here, 145. This has now reduced, है ना? ये 24 और 10 हो गया confusion matrix का. Now, theoretically, it says that random forest gives a better efficiency than the decision tree. When I was running my code, my decision tree gave me the efficiency as 80, where it is. My decision tree gave me the efficiency as 86%. So I just displayed it so there is no confusion. Where is that? I just displayed out the efficiency somewhere. I don't know where that slide has gone. Just give me a minute, please. Yes, accuracy. So what is happening in the model that we have designed is, the accuracy for KNN, when it was first modeled without hypertuning, the efficiency that I got was 56%. When I used the second model with little bit of hypertuning, I got 59%. है ना? SVM का भी ऐसे ही हुआ. Initially, I got the efficiency as 61%. Then I tuned it with some hyper parameters. Then I got the efficiency as 78%. Similarly happened with random forest, and similarly happened with decision tree. अभी यहाँ देखो, I have not used any hyper parameter at the moment for random forest, so my decision tree is giving me out good results. अगर मैंने इसमें और hyper parameter tuning की, तो theory says that random forest will give me out more better results. So if I do more of hyper parameter tuning in random forest, I'll get more accurate results. So this is the way we just stepped out from time is getting short, so I'll just wind up in just give me 4-5 minutes. So what we did is, we found out the accuracy. We did the entire data science ka process. We loaded the data set, we did the pre-processing, we removed the null values, we made the data set very clear. With the help of visualization, we could make out some good conclusions from the data. We splitted the data into training and the testing part. We trained the model, and we then tested the model, and we made out certain predictions using the k-nearest neighbor, using the SVM classifiers, using random forest, and using decision trees. Then we also learned what actually confusion matrix means, though it's not really confusing, it's very easy. So we learned what confusion matrix is, and we found out the confusion matrix for all. So jahan bhi mera value zyada hai na, as I told you, that these values are to be more. You know? So if k nearest neighbor, this was 67. That is why our accuracy was 56 and 59. Whereas in random forest, it was 145. That means the accuracy has improved to some 80s. Still, there are some values here. You know, if it is 100%, then these will be all positives and these will be all, you know, zero values. So still, accuracy is still better in decision tree at this moment of time when we have not applied any parameters. Hyperparameters for random forest, then accuracy for decision tree is more, and in our case at this moment of time. So here we can see these numbers are less. So this is what we concluded from the conclusion matrix, that how our data science process is going. So precision, there's a formula, how precise is our data. So how many true positives are there upon the true positives and the false positives, and similarly is with the recall. And the F1 score is also a measure. Those who are doing with research, they would be calculating the precision recall for every algorithm they are proposing. So precision recall and it. Now, we'll wind up with what were the benefits of data visualizations that we saw. We could make out a better analysis. Based on the parameters, we could make the quick decisions. We were able to identify the patterns. We were able to find out any errors in the data. And we could understand the entire story of Titanic. You know, from the data visualization, we could understand the entire story. How many survived? How many males survived? How many females survived? Or how many were in which class? We had some insights into the data. And when we are using this data visualization in business, we can have the insights of the business and we can grasp the latest trends. So, you know, if you have some queries, you can just either post it in the chat box or mail me on this particular ID, or my phone number is also available. So I think I winded up on time. So any queries, anyone can please post. Oh, thank you so much for the beautiful comments. Gayatri ma'am, Seema ma'am, Poonam ma'am, Rahul sir, Puneet Patel sir. So thank you very much. So if there are no queries, we'll just wind up. Anything from anyone? Thanks, Vaishali madam. Swati ma'am, thank you very much. Atul sir, thanks a lot. Tejaswini ma'am, thank you. Shraddha ma'am, thanks a lot. So I really feel that you know, we learned something out from the session, looking at your comments, and do let me know if anyone, I've given my phone number, so do let me know if anywhere constructive criticism is always welcome. Okay, so you can let me know anywhere the improvement is to be done. Neha ma'am, thanks a lot. Thank you very much. Nilesh sir, Ganesh sir, Shraddha ma'am, thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
So over to you, Vrishali ma'am. I think we can wind up the session.
Yes, thank you so much, ma'am.
Oh, just a minute. A very big comment from Vishakha ma'am. Thank you very much. I have a query for image data set. Which classifier will be good choice and which optimizer can be used for hyper tuning? Well, ma'am, it will come out from the research which parameter tuning we must do. And basically, random forest is mostly used because it gives us the, you know, the best result. So based on trials and tests, we can just, this parameter tuning, you know, ma'am, it's a research part. So which parameters are to be tuned out, that depends on the application that we are doing. So we'll have to just look out your application for the corresponding image data set. The classifier, which we have so many classifiers. So at the moment, theory says that random forest is best. So you can go along with the random forest. Thank you, Ajit sir, Yogeshwari ma'am, Monica Vishnoi, Vrishali madam, thank you. Lahane sir, thank you very much. Vishakha ma'am, thank you. Alone sir, thank you so much. So over to you, Vrishali ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
If
Thank you so
there
much.
are any, just
Is
check
there,
out if there are any queries in the chat box. There was only one query, I think, and I hope I have answered for you, Vishakha ma'am.
okay, ma'am. I think there is no any other query.
Okay, somebody is saying, please share your phone number and email. I just missed it. So I'll just again start the presentation. Is it visible, ma'am?
Yes, it is
Somebody,
visible.
yes, so somebody was asking for this.
Ma'am, just make it full screen.
Okay, I'll make it full screen. So now I don't know, some problem is coming. Now it's not going to full screen, madam.
Okay.
Present, just a minute. Yes, by mistake I clicked the share part. So here is the phone number, and so you can just have contact me on in case any queries. Maybe even I'll learn a lot from you depending on your queries. So thank you. Thank
Yes.
you. Over to you, Vrishali ma'am.
Yes, thank you so much, ma'am. It's really informative session and perfectly presented as well. This will definitely boost our knowledge. So now I request Mr. Mandlik sir to give vote of thanks to our speaker.
Thank you, ma'am. I would like to thank Dr. Neeta Deshpande, ma'am, for her valuable insights in data visualization, its techniques, various tools used for data visualization, and its practical approach using hands-on example of Titanic dataset. Thank you, ma'am. And a special thanks to all our respected participants for their enthusiastic response and patience listening. Thank you all.
Yes,
Thank you,
and
sir.
quiz and video will get shared on WhatsApp group only.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank
Thank
you
you
all.
all the participants.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you.